And welcome back. Thanks for being with us here on Morning Live. And continuing with our story, as we picked up in the news regarding the appearance of two farm murder accused in the Senekal Magistrates Court, there's much concern about possible violence breaking out, given that both AfriForum and the EFF will be present in the area today. So to discuss this and other matters related to her portfolio, we're joined by Minister of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, Thoko Didiza. Minister, good morning. Thanks for speaking to us.
Good morning, Sakina and your listeners.
Minister, obviously this matter, the murder of Brandon Horner, has firmly thrust the issue of security on farms into the spotlight again. But as the minister responsible for this portfolio, you work on the ground, you visit these communities. What are your sentiments around this particular matter at the moment?
Thank you very much, Sakina. I must say that issue of rural safety and farm safety in particular is of concern to me as well as the government in respect of agriculture. And we say so because this has got an impact on the way in which agriculture performs, because when there is fear, a lot of people wouldn't want to go to that sector. And that is why police service in particular have been working very hard to ensure that they put the rural safety strategy in place, but also act swiftly when such violence happens. We are therefore concerned that the way in which the matters in Senekal had turned out had actually had emotions on all sides, because we know that issues of farm murder, farm safety, as well as rural safety in general, are matters that are of concern to all of us, and even government is concerned equally like the citizens. However, it is important that we find a way in which we deal with these matters and not take them into our own hands. The fact that the police have moved, the fact that the justice system is actually dealing with the matter now, my own view as a minister is that all of us need to become and actually allow the law to take its course. Secondly, there are issues of relations that arise out of the land rights questions in our farms, particularly among farm dwellers, farm workers, and farmers, which are matters that we need to consistently resolve rather than resorting to violence from all sides.
Now, Minister, we are expecting a potential standoff at the very least between the EFF, who've indicated that they will be in the area today ahead of the court appearance of the two murder accused, and AfriForum have also expressed that they will be there. And we saw what had happened previously in the last court appearance of the two murder accused. So I would imagine you've spoken to your colleagues with regard to safety and security. What measures are you aware of that are in place to basically quell these tensions that exist?
Firstly, I think we do need to appreciate the right of citizens to express themselves within the confines of our law. And it's not the first time that we've seen people standing in solidarity with those that are either affected or actually impacted upon by whatever circumstances of the crime or an issue that they would want to raise their concerns about. However, what is not actually permissible is where people actually go for confrontation, which would spill into violence. My view is that at this point in time, we do need a way in which we can, on all sides, find a way of engaging peacefully in resolving what are the core issues that has led, to such circumstances, rather than wanting to actually take the law into our own hands. Expressing frustrations, expressing anger at the incidences is permissible. However, it is the actions that follows that on the way in which people then want to take law into their hands that, in my view, is not acceptable.
Now, Minister, in speaking to your cabinet counterpart, Minister Bheki Cele of the police earlier in the week, he had actually decried the fact that this matter has now become one that is racially based and it has racial undertones. But of course, this is not new. This has historic, relations. And also, given what is happening at the moment, there's concern around food security, for example, quite apart from the personal security of farmers and farm workers. There's also concern about the fact that land restitution, for example, is not happening at the pace in which it was perhaps envisaged. How are you addressing those concerns at the moment?
Well, the issue of food security, you are correct. As a country, it's a matter that we must be concerned about. It's a matter we continuously have to engage on how we make sure that we provide food for our citizens and that we create an enabling environment for our producers who are farmers, small or big. Actually, if you look at a number of our rural areas, a majority of people who produce food are your smallholder farmers who do that in very limited pieces of land. It is for that reason that government has and continues to prioritize the issue of access to land by our producers, particularly small farmers. Issue of land generally in our country, as President Ramaphosa had said in his State of the Nation address last year in June, when he took office, he actually decried the fact that our country is still reeling from our legacy of the apartheid past, where land and inequality amongst our society is still very prevalent and a stark reality and a reminder of where we come from. And therefore, land reform is an issue that all South Africans must be concerned about. It is for that reason that government has actually released state land that is in its hand to actually contribute towards the land reform process in our country. We therefore call all landowners as well to consider this as an important step forward, and they too must come to the party. And I'm saying so because part of the delays, which is not always spoken about on why land restitution and land reform in general is slow in our country, is the way in which negotiations take place, which become longer than it is necessary, but also the price margins that are charged for the farms that government would like to acquire in order to settle the claims of individuals and communities are so exorbitant that the budget that government has, which is limited to address all the needs of our people, cannot only satisfy the land issue. And therefore, we need many instruments that would enable us to address this issue.
As you say, Minister, that might take quite a while to actually effect, but government does have land. As you said, the President in February also made mention of government now releasing land for lease purposes to South Africans who are eligible. How much land, state land, has been identified for that purpose, and how much of it have you leased to date?
We had identified about 700,000 hectares of land for agricultural development. We also have got about 300,000 hectares of land, of state land, which has been identified for restitution where there are land claims for release to those communities. We also released last year 14,000 pieces of land, which is going to be used for housing development by the Ministry of Human Settlement. Out of the 700,000 hectares of land, 135,000 of those had already been released to about 235 beneficiaries. Had it not been for COVID challenge, we would have actually increased that release of land by now. Yesterday, actually, if you go on our website, we've already advertised a number of farms, which about 539,000 or so, that are for people who would want to apply to get assistance for land for farming. So people can now apply and we're giving it a month from the 15th of October to 15th of November for people to express their interest for the access in that land that government has made available. And after that, we will undertake an adjudication process so that those who are successful can actually be allocated those funds. And we want to say 50% of that from the government side, we would like to see being accessed by women, and 40% by young people, and 6% by people with disability. Because in our own policy as government, we're very concerned about the empowerment of women and our young people so that they too can take part in the mainstream of our economy.
Minister, let me preface my following two questions, which are very straightforward, with this allegation or perception that exists. And this is that government and the political elite have actually secured land for themselves since the dawn of democracy, and therefore this is why the perception exists that government is not necessarily concerned with really speeding up the process of land reform and restitution, because you have many political elites who are already sitting with tracts of land that they own. So my question is, firstly, in this particular process that you are embarking upon now, who is eligible? And secondly, how will the process of selection actually work, and adjudication as well?
Thank you very much, Sakina. I understand the questions and sometimes the perceptions that are made. Firstly, we need to correct that a number of people who may be regarded as political elites, some of them have actually acquired that land on their own in the private market without the assistance of the state. And therefore, it is important that we shouldn't generalize on that question, because we can actually blame a number of citizens who are taking rights like in any other business enterprise to enter the agricultural space. Secondly, the beneficiary selection policy is what is guiding us on the selection of those who are eligible. And maybe let me start with the exclusions. We have actually excluded public service from acquiring state land as beneficiaries. And we do so advisedly, because those are the people who are currently dealing with the issues of policy and execution. So we wouldn't want our public servants to actually be first on the queue of beneficiary of this state land release. We've done so during COVID, where some of the public servants who may be farmers in their own right, we excluded them from the government support, because our view is that it is those that are on the margins of our society who should be our priority. Secondly, we've also excluded public office bearers from the benefit of this release of land, because they deal with policy and legislation. We've actually indicated that if you have been serving as a politician, depending on whatever level, whether local government, provincial, or nationally, you will have to have a cooling period of at least 12 months before you can apply for assistance on state land or land acquisition from government. And if you are a public servant, 24 months. We do so that we can indeed create a better mechanism in which our society can have confidence in our system. All South Africans are eligible. Women, young people, those who are already engaged in agriculture, particularly for a period of 3 to 5 years and above. But also we know that there are other people who have not been farming but have an interest. Some of them are agricultural graduates who are unemployed, who would like to access the land. So we will measure when we look at those applications. It's not that those who have never farmed are actually excluded, but we're also saying anybody who would want to access this land must commit to being full-time in this business, not part-time and lease. We also want to ensure that everybody will subject themselves to basic assessment and basic training so that they can understand the enterprise and the industry they are getting into.
Minister, we are out of time. It's news time. But just a final word on the developments in Senekal. What is the message for those potentially heading out to that court hearing this morning? As the minister in this portfolio, what would you like to say?
I would actually appeal to all those who will be attending the court case, given the pain that we're all reeling from as a country on the issues of injustices in terms of our land past, but also on issues of violence in our farms and rural areas, to really try and have calm to ensure that we avoid any form of violence. And where we may have differences, be able to sit on the table and engage to find ways on how we can work with our police service and our law enforcement agencies to bring perpetrators to book.
Well, that's where we are going to leave it. Thank you so much, Minister Thoko Didiza, the Minister of Agriculture, Land Reform and the Rural Development, talking to us about the situation in Senekal, calling for calm there ahead of today's court appearance of the two accused in the murder of Brandon Horner, and also about the state releasing farms and land for lease, and speaking to us about the conditions that will apply in that regard. It's time now for the latest news.